Good morning, and welcome back to the Nolan Finley Show on 910 AM Superstation. I'm Margret Trimer-Hartley, and this morning we've been talking about the quest for talent in our region, in our state, really. The need for workers, particularly in skilled trades, construction, manufacturing, is huge, and we're trying to figure out what it's going to take to fill that pipeline and close the gap between education and employment. We're joined this last half hour of the show by Todd Sachse, who is president and CEO of Sachse Construction, and also remaining in the studio with us are Sammy Lukaskevitz and Brian Carpenter from the State Department of Talent and Economic Development. Welcome, Todd. You're right in the thick of this issue in the city of Detroit, doing massive building projects and struggling to find the workforce to carry it off. Talk to us a little bit about your company and that challenge.
Thank you very much for having me on. Very excited about this because we have a growing need in our state and particularly our city for this. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this so we can change the world. One person, one kid, one Detroiter at a time is really what we're here for. Sachse Construction is a 26-year-old general contractor, construction manager, builds stuff. We kind of jokingly say we'll build anything that starts with an A. Office, a shopping center, a restaurant, an apartment building. It's got to start with the letter A, otherwise we're not. It's not right for us. So we kind of consider ourselves a medium-sized commercial general contractor in the market here. And what we hear, not just from our own team members, but from our trade partners that we work with throughout the state and, frankly, throughout the country, is just the shortage of skilled trades. I mean, you guys have been talking about this all morning, and I can just tell you firsthand it's real. And I think that it's not going to go away until there's a concerted effort from all parties. I hear you talking about the state, the local government, the schools, the trade schools, all hands on deck to change the vernacular in our marketplace and, quite frankly, in our country about what it means to go into skilled trades and, frankly, how great of an opportunity it is. I really believe that, but we can continue to talk about that.
Well, talk about it. How great of an opportunity is it? What is the actual day-to-day work experience of someone within your company?
So it's great because I was listening to you earlier, and there was some comment or somebody said, it's not the quote-unquote dirty jobs. The reality is construction has become quite technical, a lot of IT, a lot of technology involved in it, and the planning of it. However, it's all trainable. Mm-hmm. You talk about on-the-job training. That's what really happens in our world. It's a hands-on and I'll call hands-on and head-on type of a job. You're working every day with people. You're solving problems. You're creating things. It's a clean job, and you're using your hands. You're using your head. You're problem solving. And what I find is really fascinating, a couple of things which we talked about earlier, is the lifestyle that one can have of being in the skilled trades. Not just economically, which we'll talk about that in a minute also, but you have a fair amount of freedom and flexibility being in the skilled trades. Number one, it's one of the most transferable professions that you can have. So what do I mean by that? If you're working at a store or a business sitting behind a desk, that business needs you in that particular spot every single day. If something changes in that business, whether it be its location or so on and so forth, you may or may not be able to transfer with it. But when you're in the skilled trades, there could be projects going on in cities all around you, in the north, the south, or maybe your market isn't doing well at a particular time. It's a transferable skill. You can take your family or yourself and move to a different state, move to a different city. Whether you're an electrician, a pipe fitter, a carpenter, there's always a need for that trade for, frankly, your entire life. So I talk a lot about how it's a very transferable skill. And I talk about lifestyle. The reality is you can make a great living. The average plumber, electrician, carpenter, journeyman makes more than the average architect. So, I'm not picking on architects. Architects provide
we love our architects.
Right, they do perform a great job. But I don't know the number, but my guess is, depending on what school you go to, it's going to cost you six figures. It's going to cost you, well over $100,000. It could be up to $250,000 in order to get an architectural degree.
So instead of encouraging my 14-year-old daughter to be an architect, I really got to push her into welding.
Right, exactly.
She's got the artsy thing going.
Right? There's a famous woman welder, for us of our generation from Flashdance.
Oh my God! Right?
Remember?
What a sexy job!
Exactly. Right. I mean, that was.
I gotta remember that.
Right? So don't. She
likes dancing too.
Right. Exactly. There you go. So anyhow, I got distracted there. Now I apologize. So when I say a lifestyle, you could be making $80,000 to $120,000 a year in today's dollars of being a journeyman of many of the skilled trades. It's also, it's when I say flexible, it's generally a 7 to 3, 7 to 4 job. Great for families, right? So you're raising a family. You're going to be able to be home, be with your kids at dinner time, and go to their softball games, their soccer games, and their dance recitals, and their whatever your family's into. You can, in most cases, except for certain situations, you have your weekends. Whether you're into boating or into fishing or whatever your activities are for your family. So it's just an all-around great middle-class lifestyle, and it can lead to so many other things.
Entrepreneurship.
So hey, you become a journeyman electrician and you want to open up your own electrical, whether it be I'll call it a mom-pop operation where it's you hire a couple people and you're doing residential, whether it be repair or building houses, being an electrician to build houses, or build a commercial electrical company and start doing that. So once you have those skills, you really control your destiny. Sure. You are in so control of your life. For your entire life.
You know what I find interesting right now too with the building that's going on in Detroit. Nothing, frankly, is more exciting than watching new buildings emerge from nothing. Where nothing was, now there's something amazing. Your company is involved in some of the coolest projects down in the city. Can you talk a little bit about the projects you're involved in and what's next for you?
Wow, I wasn't prepared for that. A lot of fun stuff. So recently there was we finished the Detroit Foundation Hotel, which has gotten a lot of great feedback. Old historic original firehouse in Detroit, great local and developer out of Chicago, the Impaired Group, along with his partner here locally, Walter Cohn, bought this building and converted it to this really cool boutique hotel. And for us as the contractor, it's just super fun to be part of kind of taking these old buildings and reinventing them, especially reinventing them as something that's new or different. So that was just recently finished. We just started a very exciting project right at Woodward and Mack, old apartment building that's getting renovated, converted to beautiful apartments, whole historic building. Very excited about that project. Right downtown and at 1515 Woodward, two old historic buildings. There's actually a lot of press on that. We took down the facade, and behind it there was an old Sanders sign.
Yes.
That was kind of all over the paper, about that. That was kind of cool. But actually, that was not the original facade of the building. I don't remember the year, but I think that facade was put out like in the 60s. And we're actually peeling it all the way back and trying to restore it back to the original facade of the buildings back in the 20s when it was built. So those are just some of the, exciting projects that are.
Well, and I'll take note that it was Sachse that built out JA Finance Park.
Right. Yeah,
and
20 years ago. That was
11 years ago.
Okay.
Feels like 20,
right?
And for those who haven't seen it, it's just a showplace and one of the finer finance parks that Junior Achievement has around the country. So that was a very cool partnership. Mm-hmm. We also have another partnership that you're not a company that wrings its hands and just frets about the problem. You're putting some skin in the game. And in November 9th, JA and Sachse Construction will be hosting the Sachse Construction Academy. Talk a little bit about why you feel compelled to do this work and what we hope to get out of it. What's the ROI?
Great. So, brief history. A year ago, we celebrated our 25th anniversary as a company, and we, as companies do, set up a committee and said, hey, let's find a committee. What are we going to do for our 25th anniversary? How are we going to celebrate this? And after several meetings, and should we have parties? Should we do this? Should we do that? And the idea came up and says, wait a second, let's not celebrate ourselves. Let's celebrate our industry and see how we can better our industry, better our community, and do something to give back for all the wonderful things the community's done for us. So the idea came up to partner with Junior Achievement to do a construction academy. What does that mean? What it meant was we, in partnership with JA, we reached out to high school kids, juniors and seniors in high school, primarily in Detroit public schools, and partnered with our trade partners. When our trade partners came in, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, pipe fitters, masons.
37 of them,
37 different trades. And they set up pods. Pods range from, 10 foot by 10 foot to 30 by 50, depending upon what they want to set up over at Eastern Market. And we brought these students in for the day so they can get a hands-on experience in what does it mean to work in the trades, not just to physically do it. They're laying up brick and block, they're pulling wire, the carpenters are working and building stuff right there on site. They can feel it, but more interesting, and they can talk to the men and women that are doing it. So they're meeting with them. Tell me about your job. How much money do you make? What do I got to do to become this? Give me your lifestyle. So all of a sudden, opening up these kids' eyes to a lifelong opportunity and career. From our lessons learned, last year was our first one, so you always learn what to do better. So this year, what we've really changed a lot is really trying to help them find, you've introduced them to it, now what's the path? Okay, and that's the key thing. So we have most of the trade unions there, some of the trade schools there. So hey, I go to these pods and, God, it's super cool to be an electrician. How do I become an electrician? Well, come on over here. Let's talk to the union. Let's talk to the trade school. Here's the steps you have to take. Here's the education you have to have. You have to be able to do this in math or, whatever skills you need to be doing in school in order to make sure that you can be successful in that path. So it's literally trying to expose these kids to an opportunity and, plot out the path for their success.
One of the things that about speaking with construction workers is the amount of pride that they have in their work also. Yeah. And people saying, 40 years from now, I can look back and say I built this building, sure, or I built this road, or it's just wonderful to hear that, innovation and that just pride in the work. Yeah. Of a construction person.
Well, you see it all the time. Yep. I'm glad you brought that up. And I say this, and I really believe this, and I'm still waiting for somebody to challenge me on this, because they can't, is construction is the ultimate team sport.
Absolutely, sure.
It is the ultimate team sport. Let's just take football, for example, and for those football fans or not football fans, whatever, every game is different. Every play is different. And everybody's involved every single time. So you think about that in construction, it's the exact same thing. Every day is different. It's a team sport. You're out there on the job site working together with other men and women and solving problems and figuring things out. And the next day or the next hour or the next minute, it's different. No 2 days are ever the same.
I think that's a GoPro ad right
sure.
there. Absolutely.
Right. And it is. And you win the game. There's a beginning and an end. Here's a project. It's done. There's pride.
And if there's
it's
a
like a season
on any side, if the earth guys can't get the stuff moved in time, then the foundation guys can't come in time, and that really
is affected entirely.
It truly amazes me too how, with the skill of these men and women. I leave my house in the morning. There's this much work done. I come home. It's just wow. It just amazes me to see that.
You're listening to 910 AM Superstation, the Nolan Finley Show, and we are talking about the talent gap in our our state, and particularly focus this half hour on the skilled trades in the construction arena. Todd, one of the things that is going to be so important as we work with kids is truly developing that pipeline for the employer, but also that pathway for the kids, right? And painting that picture. One of the things we hope to do this year in that endeavor is offer job shadows at the companies that show up for the academy this year, then bring 30 or 50 kids to one of those companies because those kids were turned on by that event. Yeah. And really getting that up-close glimpse and then plugging them into the apprenticeship opportunities and all of that is going to be really important. I encourage listeners to call in, if not today, tomorrow. We'll continue the dialogue both this rest of this show and into tomorrow around talent and the barriers to opportunity. Some I want to discuss a little bit the barriers that you see. And one of them we talked to earlier this show was the pot smoking problem. And I know last year I made a point when we were talking to the kids at the Construction Academy that, if they are drug-free, they'll be first in line for these jobs. What's the problem, and how are you experiencing that?
Great question. So first of all, pretty much any construction company, and certainly whether it be our company or pretty much every single one of our trade partners, you have to pass a drug test. Okay, it is the it's the ante to the game. Yep. You have to be drug-free. You cannot be working on job sites, doing drugs. It's just an unsafe at every level, and don't want to get into all the details behind that, but that's just really, really, really important. So, as you said, Margaret, it's a requirement. Yeah. So if you are able to overcome that, then there's an incredible opportunity for you.
To that point, many people think that because they have a marijuana card that they can do it at their leisure whenever they want, but it's still the employer's right to drug test, and it's the employer's right to make that decision whether to hire that person based on that test.
Right.
Yeah, we have that problem in my business as well, and you have a lot of people that bring that. I have a card. I don't care if you have a card. It's no different than drinking alcohol on the job, and nobody wants you to fall off of a building, while you're welding something. It's just not a safe environment. It's not safe.
I think
if it's in a restaurant, in a store, in a construction, it's just not.
But I think the assumption is, hey, it's just like taking Prozac, isn't it? If I have a card, it's my medicine. Right. And people jokingly say, I'd like to have a moment to have my medicine. Like, okay, but you can't do this job if you're impaired.
Correct.
Yeah.
Have you seen an increase, though?
So it's interesting to say, drinking alcohol is legal, right? And have a beer is legal. However, you can't go onto a job site intoxicated. Just because it's legal doesn't mean that you can go into a job site and put yourself and others at arm's length at risk. It's legal to drink alcohol, but it's not legal to drive drinking alcohol. Right. So driving a car is legal and drinking alcohol is legal. You just can't do them together. Right? So it's really the same thing. Right. You can't do drugs and do construction at the same time. It's whether they're independent of each other. You cannot do them together.
So do the construction companies test up front and then randomly test throughout an individual's employment?
Yes. So every one of our team members has to pass a drug test prior to employment, and we have a random drug test policy. And if there's ever an injury on a job site, and they go to Concentra or one of the, occupational medicine places, one of the requirements when they walk in the door for treatment is they get drug tested. That's just a requirement, and that's pretty much an industry-wide thing. Whatever trade you're doing, if there's an injury, they drug test. That's part of the protocol.
Right. So is it legitimate to say that we're having a greater challenge with this issue today than we were, say, 10 or 15 years ago? Or is that just the chatter and not really the reality?
That's a good question. I think the difference is they test now. I don't really know. I don't know, and I don't know if the data exists of what went on 10, 15, 20 years ago. I could talk to the medical community to find out, but I think there's a much higher level of awareness, and the companies that provide these, skilled trades, they're way more aware of this, so they're drug testing. Mm-hmm. I don't think drug testing was as popular 20 years ago. My guess is whether it be in the, you talked about earlier, whether it be in the factories or so on and so forth, my guess is all those men and women weren't drug tested.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They are today.
Well, the world is changing, right? We have the technology to do it, and we are committed to keeping a clean workforce. We talk about we can't hire convicted felons, we can't hire folks using drugs, and, at the same time, that squeezes our marketplace, definitely. Todd, tell us briefly how you got into the industry.
Wow. So the short story is I started washing windows in high school as a window washer, kind of grew it through college. Was actually pre-med in college, went all the way through pre-med while I was expanding my window washing company. I expanded into a maid service and janitorial company. Shortly after I decided not to go to medical school, just kind of expanded those businesses. I lived in Ann Arbor at the time and started buying student rental properties in Ann Arbor. And I'd renovate the kitchen and the bathroom. Excuse me, I was handy. My old Jeep had a bunch of tools in the back, and so when my tenants called and said the door's broken, I went and fixed it. I say, I am not skilled. I have no skill, but I'm handy. There's a difference between skilled labor. I have no skill.
That's another ad. That's another GoPro ad.
There's a difference between skilled and handy. So anyhow, so kind of one thing led to another. That an opportunity to buy some land in Ann Arbor and build an apartment complex. Had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I was 26 years old. I hired a superintendent, and I worked for him. He worked for me, but I worked for him. I became his assistant on the job site for 14 months and had a riot. I mean, it was just fun.
True blue entrepreneur.
It was just fun. I mean, I just loved it.
And you're still having fun.
Yeah, I'm still having a lot of fun. It's a really cool, fun industry.
What a great discussion this morning. I thank you, Todd Sachse, for joining us, and Brian Carpenter and Sammy Lukaskevitz from the Talent and Economic Development Department in Michigan.